You are listening to a recording from the Cooperating to Build a Better Nova Scotia conference in Halifax, a celebration marking the United Nations International Year of Cooperatives.
Okay, we're back live, 106.9 FM in Halifax from the Cooperating to Build a Better Nova Scotia conference put on by the Nova Scotia Co-op Council in celebration of the International Year of the Co-op. And I've got 4 conference attendees here with me, and they just came out of the session Education for Cooperation, Curriculum, and the Cooperative Model in Nova Scotia's educational institutions and post-secondary educational institutions. Welcome. I'm just going to pass the mic around. You can all introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Kerr Smith from Ontario, actually, and I'm part of the education manager with the Ontario Cooperative Association, and I came to speak about some of the high school initiatives that we're doing an All for Each project, so branding these curriculum documents for high schools.
Cool.
I'm Ranjita from Coady. I am a diploma participant. I'm from India. I came to participate in this program and I really enjoyed hearing about cooperatives and I learned a lot.
I'm Alison Mathie and I teach at the Coady International Institute where Ranjita is a participant. And I talked about the kinds of programs that we are running at the Coady Institute, many of which are about collective action and cooperation for many different purposes and for many different country contexts.
And my name is Chris McDaniel. I am a cooperative youth. I'm actually an education student, soon to graduate, and I spoke on the panel as a student who has had plenty of experience in the education system here in Nova Scotia.
Excellent. So I guess I'll throw out the first question. What was the session about? So we're talking about cooperatives in the educational context, both in public school and in a post-secondary education. So what was kind of the focus of the session? What were kind of the key messages that you all kind of delivered and that were discussed within it? Kerr, do you want to start? You were on the panel?
Yep.
Yeah,
I was on the panel. So there's a few questions in there. So I think, all right.
Keep it going for a while.
I think what we talked about was where we're at in education, what different schools, post-secondary and secondary, what they have in terms of cooperative education and the potential for the future. And I think one of the themes that came out for me was that the potential's there. All the buzzwords are there in schools, the sustainability, democracy, communities, volunteerism. It's all there. It's just getting that message out. It's an easy sell once we get it into the right hands.
Yeah. And you do a lot of work in the public school system because I suspect there's a huge difference between, or maybe there isn't, the approach with public schools as opposed to post-secondary education?
Well, I'll turn it over to one of the other panel members to talk about post-secondary because I deal exclusively with high schools and middle schools.
Okay, yeah.
Well, in my case, post-secondary means the Coady International Institute, which runs programs for graduates from all over the world for a 5-month diploma program in development leadership. Now, we were well known for our educational programs on cooperatives and credit unions in the 60s and 70s. But really, since then, I would say our programs and our courses have shifted much more to innovations in cooperation, collective action, ways in which people are organizing to make their communities and make the world a better place, but not necessarily through the more conventional economic cooperatives, but finding all kinds of innovative ways to build community, co-produce services, claim space in the economy, and take more control over the economy. So our program is it is unique really because it is designed mainly for people from developing countries, from the global south, but we welcome participants from all over the world to our short courses as well.
All right, and to touch a little bit on what Kerr said, the panel really discussed the issues that exist, but also what potential there is in the system right now. So where we're at, what resources we already have to use to get where we want to be. And so I think there's great potential in the public education system right now in Nova Scotia to develop our cooperative education. But likewise, we also discussed on the post-secondary level what exists at the different universities at this time. So which universities have programs that take into consideration cooperatives, programs that may have co-op specific courses. So it was great just to have an overview of what exists at the present time.
And we're fortunate to have someone to maybe add global context to this as well. You want to give a little, just a little background, a bit of your background and what draws you to this session and this topic?
I am working with women in India, and as from my childhood till today, I have not heard much about cooperatives. I have heard, when I was in the school, I knew that there is cooperative where I was going to withdraw my scholarship. I knew that money and all this thing involved. But after coming here, I could learn many things, how the cooperative is helpful for the people, how it is bringing them together, and economically how they are helped. It's not only economically, but they are helped also socially in the community. And that is, I will take it back home to how to help women, those who are self-employed in the urban sector, coming together to earn money. And we are trying to help them to build, form a union so that they can be strengthened in the union and could do for themselves, that they become self-reliant. Yeah.
So when you talk about curriculum development, what kind of things, what kind of strategies, ideas have kind of like come up in experience and best practices and that kind of thing in terms of teaching a curriculum around cooperative development and the cooperative model?
Well, I'm a former teacher myself, so that I didn't know about co-ops before I became a teacher. And of course, as I mentioned in the session, once I was hip to what co-ops were, I thought, why did I not know about this? Yeah. And so I think the key for me was there are these amazing human stories, that the fill a need or to right a social wrong, where these co-ops come from. And that just wasn't being pushed in the documents that we had for students. It was very intricate as far as the business model. And I think we can get to that, but it's these human pieces, these people that stood up to make a difference, these cooperative champions like the anti-commission movement that are so inspiring, and I think that comes at a perfect time right now. So we developed our curriculum around these stories and the real human piece.
Oh, nice. And from the post-secondary context, what kind of, challenges or how do you go about developing a curriculum around cooperatives in the post-secondary context?
Well, I think it's keeping your fingers on the pulse of what's happening, what's changing. And one of the things that I've learned from looking back over our own history is how our take on cooperative education has evolved and changed with changing times. So what might have been relevant in the 1960s for our participants whose countries, many of were launching cooperative programs, may not be appropriate now in a very neoliberal, globalized environment. And what we're seeing now are some very interesting innovations in terms of how people are figuring out how to organize, to claim space, to get in on the action, and also to diversify their livelihoods and also to protect themselves from the vagaries of the global economy. So,
so I guess when you're talking about an educational context, we really have to consider youth engagement and how do we get kind of youth excited about the idea of co-op and get them kind of like into cooperative kinds of programs that aren't related to the work experience kind of co-op programs. Chris, maybe since you're on the youth committee, you might be good to address this around the issue of youth engagement.
All right, well, youth engagement is always a big question, and one thing I spoke of on the panel was how I became engaged. And primarily that was outside of the public education system, outside of my post-secondary education system, my post-secondary education, sorry. So really my involvement came through outside leadership programs, for example, cooperative leadership programs. And that's a great way to get youth engaged. At this time, there isn't as much of a cooperative youth leadership presence outside of schools right now in Nova Scotia. So I think that's something that we should work on, but it's also of utmost importance to have this presence in the schools. But another thing that I alluded to during the question period was that we have to ensure the best way, in my opinion, to engage youth is to make it different, to present it in a different manner than usual, because that's the only reason I ever became interested. It was because it wasn't that I was sitting at a desk and taking notes from the board. It was that I was being thrown into a group and being explained what a co-op was and being asked to fill a need. And so I think it's really important to change a bit the context in which you're teaching the lessons about cooperatives, just so that you gain the students' interest.
So really kind of like that practical, hands-on kind of experience is a good way. Now, I suspect that when we're talking about education and stuff, you might come from a little different perspective. Is there a lot around youth engagement? I know you mentioned like engaging women's groups and stuff like that back in India, but do you find that there is more a focus around that than on youth? And what kind of, things are happening within the, like, is it kind of like known as the co-op movement over there, or?
In India so far, I don't have much about cooperative. Just I have heard about cooperative is there, like about the union. That cooperative money business is there, but how really people are engaged in this cooperative, I don't have much experience. I have again one place where I was studying when I was doing my rural development. There I heard that there is a cooperative. People pool their money together, and when they are in need of, they get money to help their to meet their needs. But it's not much. We don't talk about cooperative in the university, in the schools. No. Yeah.
But you do around a union more.
Yeah, it's more like union forming women to help them in their crisis. Like when we talk cooperative, it's like it's not for the educated people. It's most for the ignorant people, those who are really of like less of contact with this. And it's
yeah. So you had a question period at the end. Were there any kind of like questions that maybe you found really like you're glad to hear kind of like the things coming out of the things that you're saying and talking about, and new ideas that percolated maybe for you personally through the session? Maybe I'll just pass the mic around. And
well, for me, I just really enjoyed hearing the examples of different things that are going on. There were a couple of questions, but there was the eco smoothie co-op at one of the schools. I'm not
eco smoothie.
I don't know enough about it, so I don't want to get it wrong. But just a school that took on a challenge in one of their courses to create a co-op, and I think they created an eco smoothie. So I'm getting nods. So I think I'm right in that. But it was just neat to hear the different projects that are going on, and also just to share and to connect with people afterwards and share. And ironically, to crazy idea, but to actually cooperate amongst ourselves to share ideas about what's going on and how we can help each other, that was the coolest thing for me.
In the discussion there were a lot of ideas, and I was struck by the number of young people in the session. It was absolutely fantastic. Because a comment was made this morning that in the plenary session that the cooperative movement is associated with aging white males. So it was really wonderful to see such a really interested group of young people. And my guess is that people are not only interested in cooperatives, but new ideas for a more socially just economy. And I think there were apart from cooperatives themselves, there were lots of other, there was quite a buzz, I think, about what kind of employment we can get when we graduate, that we can feel good about and still make a living. And just getting the publicity out there, as somebody else said, about what is happening and what these organizations are that do have a more social mandate as well as an economic mandate, and thinking about what we can learn from other places internationally about what we can do here. There are lots of very interesting models being tried here that have originated elsewhere, and we need to provide these kinds of venues for those ideas to be shared and inspiration to be set in motion.
And I think you touched on something very important, because the co-op values, in my opinion, are very enticing to youth. Right now, there are so many youth that are seeking justice and seeking really the values that co-ops already portray, represent, and live out. So it was really, again, it was great to see so many people involved. And I actually really enjoyed how the question period more so became just a discussion and a sharing of ideas. So it really just ended up being ideas like what we could do where, what has worked, what hasn't, and just the sharing of the resources that we can pool to really make this work.
I could see the interest from youth side, and it's our challenge, like how to get them involved in the cooperatives. And it's a good beginning that it has started from the secondary schools. So I hope it will create interest among students and the youth will be involved in cooperatives.
I know we talked to Amanda Hatchie yesterday, who ran a really interesting youth engagement program as well. And I find, talking about creating ideas where youth actually get to go in and create their own co-op, or maybe create a video, or, just like engage them to talk about co-ops or listen about co-ops in another way. Do you think being more creative in the way that we approach, how we're teaching, about alternative models of development and community organization, do you think that really kind of is a benefit to maybe kind of get outside the box a little bit with our approach to curriculum? Maybe we'll pass to the ex-teacher first.
Well, I mean, it's always good to be creative when you're teaching. I mean, I think the more creative, the better. And as was brought up before, I think, the stories are there, the buzzwords are there. It's all there. It's just finding, what is relevant for youth today. And I think we're talking about that social justice piece. I think I'm reading a book right now called Lynchpin by Seth Godin. I'm not sure if anyone's read it, but Seth Godin. And it talks about, gone are the days where, just to show up at work and to have a job, people they care. They want to be owners, or they want to have some kind of stake in what's going on and what they do with their lives. And the co-op model is perfect for that. Yeah. So I think just getting those messages and making sure that knowing your audience is the key. Yeah. Yeah. So, anybody else?
Yeah, and I think it's also, in terms of out-of-the-box thinking, I think the cooperativism with a small c is worth thinking about, so we don't get boxed in by the co-op model so much as enterprises and initiatives that are based on cooperative principles. For example, in Antigonish, there is a new community-supported restaurant that has been started up by a young couple who sought investment from the community. We're able to raise a significant amount as subscriptions, and those of us who've subscribed, we now get repaid over a period of 4 years in terms of a free meal a month. And this is an informal form of cooperatism that was then used as leverage for a loan from the banking system. So this is a really nice innovation. I think it was there are a few examples in the States perhaps of this, but I think it's one of the first in Canada of its kind. And What's the
name of the restaurant?
The name of the restaurant is the Townhouse Brew Pub in Antigonish. Highly recommend it.
I'll check it out.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. And, of course, with creativity and youth engagement, we have to talk about social media a little bit, too. I mean, in the North American context, I don't know what is kind of like the uptake with social media from India, like things like Facebook and Twitter, or, Not much, no. So I guess probably different tools would be needed in that global context for those engagement pieces. What are your thoughts as you're hearing everyone kind of talk about creativity and getting outside the box and stuff like that?
First of all, we need to create awareness about cooperative at different level among students, among people, how it functions and how it is beneficiary for the people. Maybe once we do this, then we can think about how to network and how to do all these things. Yeah. Sure. And we need to be creative, how to connect and how to get to know more about cooperative.
Yeah. And, what role does social media play in youth engagement and how can we kind of incorporate that into forms of curriculum and stuff? I know, lots within the school, like a lot of public school systems around here, they won't even allow Facebook into their classrooms or the school servers block it from coming in. So, there are some, definitely some institutional barriers. And when you're talking about using the language and the tools of youth for youth engagement, Chris, do you want to maybe speak to that a little bit?
Well, as been mentioned, you have to know your audience. And with that being said, I think the co-op sector does have a certain role to engage youth through social media. I think that it is of great importance. Obviously, the barriers in the schools, in the different schools, for example, with access to social media, I think even though those barriers exist, the students are still going to go home and they're going to be on social media. There are still ways to gain their interest through social media, even if they can't see it during school hours. So I don't think that it is a barrier in one sense, but at the same time, those barriers are there for reasons, for security reasons specifically for the students. So really, we just for the co-op movement to take advantage of the social media opportunities to engage youth in a general sense, not just during classroom time.
Yes, for sure. Did you have anything you want to add to that? So, yeah.
Well, just we ran this Create a Co-op challenge online through Facebook, and we would go into the schools, but we had it in the book where the teachers would teach the unit, and they would develop a business plan in the class, and then it was an added piece where they could take that business plan which they would get marked on, and then go on Facebook and upload a 2-minute pitch video. And so it was something cool that the teachers could say, now there's something practical to do with your assignment. Yeah. Go home and do it. And we had over 1,000 votes, which was great. And we've been asked to run it again every semester by teachers. So that was a way that's in Ontario. Yeah. It was actually for youth across Canada, but because I'm in Ontario, I was focused most on it there. But it was for anyone 25 and under. But that really worked within the classroom and beyond with using social media. So.
Well, I think we can wrap up. I'm going to send you around just any final thoughts or ideas that you want to, or have you said all that you can say about this topic, or? Yeah? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming over and chatting with us. I know there's lots more on the conference program. You guys are probably itching to get into some more sessions and stuff, but thank you so much for coming and talking to us.